In the early hours of January 12th, the United States and United Kingdom launched airstrikes on Houthi militant targets in Yemen, hitting command and control centers, ammunition, depots, and missile launch sites with over 150 precision-guided munitions. The United States deployed Tomahawk cruise missiles and F-15E fighters, striking over 60 targets in Yemen's capital Sana'a and Hodeidah. The Royal Air Force of the United Kingdom used Typhoon fighters, hitting 2 targets in Yemen's western Taiz province. On the night of January 12th, the USS Independence destroyer bombed targets in Hodeidah. The following morning, the USS Carney missile destroyer launched several Tomahawk missiles, destroying a radar station near Yemen's capital Sana'a. Beginning January 14th, the Houthi militants started to retaliate. At 4:45 p.m. on January 14th, an anti-ship cruise missile, launched from an Iran-backed Houthi-controlled area, targeted the USS Laboon, DDG-58, in the southern Red Sea, but was successfully intercepted by U.S. fighters. On January 15th, the U.S. military detected the launch of an anti-ship ballistic missile towards the southern Red Sea's commercial shipping lanes. The missile failed mid-flight, crashing in Yemen. Of greater concern, around 4 p.m. on January 15th, another Iran-backed Houthi-launched anti-ship ballistic missile struck the MV Gibraltar Eagle, a U.S.-owned container ship flying the flag of the Marshall Islands. Despite no reports of casualties or significant damage, the incident marked an escalation in the tense conflicts in the Red Sea region. The same day, a U.S. oil tanker was also attacked near the Gulf of Aden, further exacerbating regional instability. Following these attacks, at least 6 new oil tankers left the southern Red Sea. The Houthi militants declared to Al Jazeera that any U.S. and UK vessels would be targeted, a direct provocation toward the United States. If such attacks continue, they would significantly impact the shipping insurance industry and potentially trigger broader economic repercussions, forcing the U.S. military to respond more aggressively. At 4:15 a.m. on January 16th, the U.S. military successfully destroyed 4 anti-ship ballistic missiles prepared for launch from a Houthi-controlled area in Yemen. This was followed by another Houthi attack around 1:45 p.m. from their controlled territory toward the international shipping lanes in the southern Red Sea. The missile targeted MV Zographia, a Malta-flagged bulk carrier. Fortunately, no casualties were reported, and the vessel continued its journey in the Red Sea. The increasing boldness of the Houthi militants is attributed to strong support from major powers like China, Russia, and Iran. These countries not only provide material support, but also strategic guidance and assurances of safety for the Houthis. However, the Houthis may not fully realize that to China, Russia, and Iran, they are not a core force but expendable pawns. There are 2 purposes. One is to create diplomatic narratives to cause divisions within the U.S., similar to the Vietnam War era. The other is to use the Houthis to tie down U.S. forces in the Middle East and Africa. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy SEALs conducted 2 significant military operations in Somali waters, which revealed Iran's meddling in the region's stability. The U.S. Central Command released information about a U.S. Navy operation near the Somali coast in the Arabian Sea on January 11th. This operation involved a civilian fishing vessel where, based on intelligence, the Navy SEALs discovered part of the intercontinental ballistic missiles and anti-ship missiles. To the average person, these were unrecognizable as ballistic missile components. The seized items included medium-range ballistic missiles and anti-ship cruise missile propulsion, guidance systems, and warheads, along with anti-aircraft parts. Preliminary analysis suggests that the Houthis have used such weapons to threaten and attack innocent sailors on international merchant ships transiting the Red Sea. Hours later, the SEALs again seized weapons made in Iran, identical to those mentioned above, as they were being transferred along the Somali coast. During this operation, faced with harsh sea conditions, 2 SEAL team members fell overboard and remain missing. The U.S. Navy's interception operations have exposed the deep strategy of the China-Russia-Iran alliance. Iran not only arms the Houthis, but has also begun supporting Somali pirates, aiming to expand the Red Sea conflict and force the U.S. military to deploy more resources in the Middle East and Africa. This strategy could divert American focus from the Western Pacific region, where China and Russia seek to create chaos. The U.S. military's primary concern may now extend beyond airstrikes on Houthi militants to cautiously avoiding entrapment in the Middle East battleground, while preventing China and Russia from creating turmoil in the Western Pacific. In the complex situation in the Middle East, the U.S. faces significant decisions on how to respond to the Houthi militants. Current trends suggest that the U.S. might prefer to consult with regional allies like Israel or Saudi Arabia to avoid direct ground involvement while keeping the option of direct military action against Iran on the table. U.S. media has started to emphasize the link between the Houthi militants and Iran, undoubtedly laying the groundwork for potential military action against Iran. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham has explicitly stated that America's strategic goal should be to directly target Iran. Now a key question has emerged. Does Iran truly possess the capability to manufacture intercontinental and cruise missiles? The answer to this question became increasingly clear on January 15th. On that day, Iran launched an attack in Erbil, northern Iraq, targeting the residence of Kurdish businessman Preshad Dizai, utilizing 24 Fateh 110 ballistic missiles. The scale and destructive power of this attack were unprecedented, even surpassing Israeli missile strikes in the Gaza Strip. The residence of the Kurdish Tycoon, a reinforced concrete air defense bunker, was leveled in one strike, showcasing the use of an explosive far beyond conventional means. The U.S. military and experts analyzing this attack suggest that the explosive used was likely CL-20, considered the most powerful non-nuclear explosive in the world. It is significantly more potent than traditional TNT, appearing as a white crystalline powder, with its production process being extremely complex and costly. Currently, only the United States and China are believed to possess the technology to manufacture this explosive. This attack reveals a possible secret collaboration between Iran and China, serving as a serious warning to the international community. The production of advanced explosives like CL-20 involves cutting-edge chemical technology, particularly in the creation of all-nitrogen anion or cation salts. The U.S. first successfully synthesized an all-nitrogen cation salt in 1999, where just 0.2 grams of it could cause substantial damage, such as blowing out a ventilation window. However, the instability of this all-nitrogen cation salt led scientists to develop a more stable nitrogen anion salt. During this development, reports indicate that several Chinese students participated in related research and brought key technologies back to China. Under the leadership of Professor Hu Bingcheng at Nanjing University of Science and Technology, the world's first stable all-nitrogen anion salt was successfully synthesized on March 22, 2017, with the findings published in the journal Science. This substance is considered an important precursor to CL-20 explosives, a stabilizer that can be transformed into ammunition by adding an activator. Additionally, China developed a compound known as dinitrotriazolone, a yellow crystalline solid known for its high thermal stability and explosiveness, widely used as a solid rocket propellant. This compound is reportedly applied in Chinese military projects such as rocket torpedo tests for the Type 093 nuclear submarine. These research activities are primarily concentrated at Nanjing University of Science and Technology, which has become a significant base for China's military R&D. This has drawn sanctions from the United States. How the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, secretly transports advanced military technology to the Middle East is key to understanding the region's conflicts. Utilizing the good stability of the all-nitrogen anion salt, which can exist stably at temperatures up to 116 degrees Celsius, the CCP cleverly disguises it as humanitarian aid, easily circumventing international inspections. This covert transportation method allows the CCP to deploy advanced weapon systems extensively across the Middle East, especially around the Red Sea. What are Iran and the CCP's ultimate goals? It is to target American aircraft carriers. A key tactic is the limited water area in the region, making it easier to effectively track and locate U.S. carriers. Several key locations, including Somalia, Houthi-controlled areas, Iran, and Hezbollah-controlled territories, are prepared with missiles ready to launch. Upon detecting the position of a U.S. carrier, missiles loaded with CL-20 explosives will be fired simultaneously from multiple directions. Even Iran's ballistic missiles, which are publicly claimed to have a range of only 1,000 kilometers, can extend their range to 2,000 kilometers with special rocket propellants, and their warheads, if loaded with CL-20, could even penetrate 2 meters of steel. This military maneuver poses a direct challenge to the U.S. military presence in the region, requiring heightened vigilance from the U.S. and its allies against this new strategic layout. On the 16th, the Israel Defense Forces crossed the border into Lebanon, clearing mines near the village of Aita al-Shab. This is the first time since 2006 that the Israeli Defense Forces have entered Lebanon, potentially paving the way for a ground attack. For Hezbollah and Lebanon, there is no doubt that war is imminent. Baghdad reacted strongly to Iran's recent missile attacks in the Erbil region of northern Iraq, even recalling its ambassador from Tehran. The Kurds in Iraq have clearly stated their readiness to go to war with Iran. Moreover, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has already arrived in Erbil, meeting with the Prime Minister of the Kurdish region, Barzani, emphasizing that the U.S. and international community should respond to Iran's violation of Iraqi sovereignty. On the 16th, Iran also launched a missile attack against Jaish-ul-Adl in Pakistan's Baluchistan province, directly invading Pakistani airspace. Iran claims that this Pakistani jihadist group was responsible for the terrorist attack in Iran on January 3rd. Coincidentally, just 2 days earlier, the CCP heavily propagated that Jaish-ul-Adl in Baluchistan was a terrorist organization backed by India. In less than 24 hours, Iran has attacked 3 countries, Syria, Iraq, and Pakistan, all Sunni-majority nations with ties to the U.S., seemingly sending a strong message to Sunni Muslim countries. Cooperation with the U.S. will have severe consequences. The Kurds, due to their cooperation with the U.S., became a target, and likewise Pakistan, an ally of the U.S., was also on Iran's hit list. This approach aims to prevent Sunni nations from collaborating with the U.S. Iran's missile attacks invading Pakistani airspace and territory, if unresponded by Pakistan, could enable Iran to establish greater authority among Muslim countries in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia's silence on the incidents, as the traditional leader of Sunni Islam, indicates a waning influence in the region, a stark contrast to its past conflict with Shiite Iran during the Iran-Iraq War. The situation in the Middle East is escalating comprehensively. Iran's widespread missile attacks in the last few days will undoubtedly lead to significant changes, with China and Russia likely to stand with Iran. The malevolent alliance between China and Russia is becoming more noticeable on the global stage. Examining the countries along the Somali coast and the Red Sea, Sudan and Somalia are of interest. Russia initially planned to establish a naval base on the Red Sea coast of Sudan, opposite Saudi Arabia's Mecca, as Saudi Arabia hoped for a Russian base there to balance the U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf. In February 2023, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov visited Sudan and signed an agreement with the Sudanese military to establish a naval base in Port Sudan, accommodating up to 4 vessels. However, this agreement required approval from Sudan's legislature and joint government. At that time, Sudan's regular army commander, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, advocated for military restructuring first, while the commander of the Rapid Support Forces, Mohamed Dagalo, advocated for civilian restructuring, delaying the formation of the joint government and legislature. Additionally, in March 2023, Burhan's close ties with Russia, including currency exchange, concerned the West. In April 2023, Dagalo and his Rapid Support Forces staged a military coup with support from Western countries, becoming the de facto ruler of Sudan. To maintain power in Sudan, Dagalo relies on ongoing support from the West, making Russia's naval base plans unlikely. Sudan is now under Western influence, while the Somaliland region of Somalia, which declared independence in 1991 but lacks international recognition, maintains good relations with the West. Regarding Chinese politician Liu Guozhong's visit to Somalia and Ethiopia, it seems to be a reactive measure following a significant recent development closely related to the Gulf of Aden. On January 2nd, Ethiopia and Somaliland signed a memorandum of understanding allowing Ethiopia to use Somaliland's ports and naval bases for 50 years. This move is undoubtedly a clever strategic play by the West in the Red Sea region. According to the Somaliland government, Ethiopia will officially recognize the sovereignty of Somaliland in exchange for access to the Red Sea. However, the Ethiopian government has remained silent on this matter, not daring to make a public statement. In response, the Somali government decisively expelled the Ethiopian ambassador from the country. The Sudan Rapid Support Forces, backed by the West, played a decisive role in facilitating this agreement. On December 28th, the leader of this force, Dagalo, visited Ethiopia before the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, hinting at Western influence in this event. The refugee crisis sparked by the Sudanese civil war has affected Ethiopia, with hundreds of thousands of refugees pouring into the northern Tigray region. The Sudan Rapid Support Forces proposed a condition. Ethiopia would halt the influx of refugees into Tigray if it recognized Somaliland's sovereignty and used its ports. This proposal represents a clever strategic move in international politics. With Ethiopia taking the lead, it is possible that the West might follow suit, recognizing the sovereignty of Somaliland on the international stage and opening a new diplomatic front. In this context, Somaliland faces a critical decision, whether to join the operation against the Houthi militants in exchange for international recognition and support. Given Somaliland's good relations with Taiwan and the influence of the United States in the background, this decision represents a significant opportunity for Somaliland. Why is Ethiopia so willing to let the West use it as a pawn against China and Russia? Ethiopia had little choice. The Tigray Civil War in Ethiopia lasted 2 years until a ceasefire was declared in January 2023. The war caused hundreds of thousands of deaths and nearly collapsed the national finances. Under such conditions, Ethiopia could not afford another military conflict with Somalia. By the end of 2023, Ethiopia declared a debt default, becoming the third African country to go bankrupt since 2022, following Ghana and Zambia. Unlike smaller West African nations, Ethiopia's bankruptcy as the largest country and economy in East Africa has significant regional implications. Under the pressure of debt default, Ethiopia had no choice but to accept the proposal of the Sudanese rebels. Refusing the Sudanese rebels' proposal could have led Ethiopia to face new internal conflict threats, potentially leading to complete financial and structural collapse. Mercenaries mixed with refugees could flood into the Tigray region, plunging Ethiopia into civil war and financial ruin. But by agreeing, Ethiopia not only gained port access, but also weakened its neighbor Somalia. Guided by Western strategy, Ethiopia chose to recognize Somaliland, altering the political landscape of the Red Sea region.